Hey everyone, welcome to another special edition of AI for Lunch. Just like in the last episode, today is going to be another reaction episode, and I'm going to be reacting to an article from the Washington Post, published last August 28th by Rebecca Tan and Regine Cabato. I think many of you may have already seen this article, and it's about remote work. So behind the AI boom, an army of overseas workers in digital sweatshops. Actually, the term digital sweatshops is actually attributed to me because I was one of the resource people interviewed by Regine. I actually will be talking to Regine as well in another episode of AI Conversation, so please wait for that. But in the meantime, let's have a look at what's happening with this article or with this phenomena. You know? So anyway, I don't know if everyone has read this. I'll put the link in the description. So in general, the article is a report of young workers in the Philippines in the thousands who support the AI industry by doing data annotation. Data annotation is basically for images. You tag them, like what's in this picture, and I also surmise this includes text annotation as well. And this is both to create the raw data that AI will be trained on. At the same time, it could also form part of what's already called RLHF, or reinforcement learning through human feedback, which is interesting because most of us who use AI kind of assume that AI has always been able to do what it does rather magically. But the reality is the way that AI reasons is due 100% because of human effort. And this is one story that looks at it. So this data annotation is being called crowd work. It involves tasks like labeling images, editing text. Now, interestingly, if you read the article, one of the opening statements here is more than 2 million people in the Philippines perform this type of crowd work. And I think this is being misconstrued as 2 million people who are doing data annotation. But actually, I actually clarified this with Regine offline and also did a little bit of research. The 2 million figure here actually refers to the estimate of total digital freelancing. In fact, there's a piece of research published by DLSU professor Cheryl Soriano back in 2021, which at that time put the number around 1.5 million. So obviously between 2021 and 2023, that number has grown. So these 2 million people here, it's easy to interpret that as 2 million people doing data annotation, but actually there's 2 million people doing crowd work of any kind or digital freelancing of any kind, of which a component is data annotation. So AI relies primarily on workers based in countries like the Philippines. We're all affectionately known as the global South. So I've heard stories of similar work being done in India, in Kenya, in Pakistan, in Bangladesh. It's pretty much the kind of work being sent to poorer countries. Um, and the bottom line here is, as more and more of the world becomes increasingly dependent on AI, AI's data is also highly in demand. So we need accurate data, we need legible data for these models to function, properly or effectively. Now, if we zoom in on the kind of the subject of this article, we're actually all of it is now referring to a platform called Remote Tasks, which employs at least 10,000 workers, could be more. And Remote Tasks itself is owned by a US startup called Scale AI. And Scale AI prides itself as being a data supplier to the likes of OpenAI, Google, Meta. So if you envision this as sort of a supply chain, we have data annotation courtesy of Filipinos at the lowest end of that supply chain. It's being fed up to Scale AI, and they feed that to OpenAI and the rest, who are obviously charging for the use of their models. Now, I think the main contention here is workers have reported, I think, less than favorable work conditions. So they're paid less than minimum wage. Usually their payments are delayed, and they don't have any recourse to complain to. This is a highly unregulated industry. And in the in the story, the reporters interviewed 36 workers, and of the 36 workers, 34 of them experienced payment delays, even cancellation sometimes. So it feels like kind of the wild frontier in terms of remote work. So as I said, they earn far below minimum wage. The reported amounts range from $6 to $10 a day. So what is that? Um, six times six, maybe 360 to 600 pesos a day. You know. Uh, However, Scale AI in another front actually claims to pay decent living wages, but clearly the truth is far less than that. And this is obviously sparking a lot of debate on the ethics and the need for regulation around this industry. Remote tasks is not the only platform doing this. In fact, you can already call this sector kind of microtasking. It's similar to like the Mechanical Turk thing that came up a decade ago, but now it's pervasive because of the high demand for AI and the high demand for AI data for AI. Obviously, the Philippines still has to look into this. Government doesn't have any regulation on microtasking, although there have been recent moves to provide protections for freelancers. That has happened. Um, while in the meantime, Scale AI raised at least $600 million in venture capital. It's valued at $7 billion. Is already positioning itself as an AI industry champion with this kind of this structure. Overall, globally, remote tasks had in 2021 more than 200,000, closer to 240,000 remote taskers. So can you imagine this global network of low-paid people providing remote tasks and Scale AI with the manpower? And the way remote tasks works is an auction basis. So there's a job or a mission that pops in the screen, and people bid to do those tasks. So obviously that kind of it's kind of a marketplace, creates a race to the bottom phenomena. No? Obviously the job will go to the person who can bid the lowest and do it quickest. And this is actually now created this, I would say, antithesis of a market economy. It's now created this rather oppressive and rather disadvantageous environment for these workers. The lead for this actually started with the Oxford Internet Institute. Um, so OII, if you check it out, oii.ox.ac.uk, they've been publishing this thing called Fair Work or Fair.work, which is I guess, an ongoing research into how fair labor practices are across the world and for certain companies, certain countries. So scale and remote tasks actually rate quite low in against their principles. So some of the Internet Institute's principles are fair pay, fair conditions, fair contracts, fair management, fair representation, and of the kind of the 10-point versus 15-point scale provided by Fair Work, only one out of 10 appears. Of course, this is being disputed by remote tasks in the article, and obviously it's an ongoing debate as well. But clearly, what we see on the ground, as reported by the Washington Post, is people aren't really getting paid properly. And obviously, the name digital sweatshops, I was one of the people who coined it, because this is not unlike the phenomena we've witnessed with other major brands back in the past. Like, I'm sure people remember Nike and allegations of child labor. We've also had, reports of Apple in their less than favorable working conditions in their iPhone factories in China. So all of this is, for me, That's like the brick and mortar version, and then this remote tasks and what's happening here is um, you know, the digital version. And it's been reported that this global data collection and annotation industry can only grow, and it's estimated to reach $17 billion by 2030, which is for me ironic. For an industry that's supposedly growing, it's treating its workers rather badly. So if we step back uh, and think about what are the implications of this, actually, the Manila Standard has approached, various other parties. Like this came out just yesterday. Jack Madrid, who's the president of IBPAP, was interviewed, and uh, obviously the BPO industry needs to look into this because I think personally this is an opportunity to professionalize it. The fact that these setups are in existence means there's demand for this work. And obviously, maybe the fact is our workers don't have enough options other than remote tasks. So from a private sector standpoint, that's for me the mandate. People need to get other opportunities that can give them fair work and fair pay. I was also interviewed by the Manila Standard. I think just yesterday, and I provided that statement that this is an opportunity for BPOs to come in, professionalize this industry. BPOs already do similar higher end work like transcription, technical support, even content moderation, which is kind of the subject of another report where people reported mental health issues, getting exposed to all this lurid content online. But at least they're paid well, unlike these data annotators who can't get a fair shake. So again, reflecting on this, what this article for me exposes and puts up front is this seeming conflict between the AI boom and its reliance on an annotation industry that's unregulated and treating people badly. I remember when I was pointing out the utopias and the dystopias, I kind of pointed to labor as one of those utopia dystopia scenarios where the dystopia is for people to lose jobs and the utopia is for people to get new jobs. And actually, the new jobs that are being created in this case are far from ideal, and I think that's a problem. So it's kind of not a job loss dystopia, it's a job creation dystopia, and I find that interesting, something to look further into. The other thing that it also highlights is while AI is perceived as something that can run independent of humans, it's always being put against humans for that matter. The reality is, you know, um, AI actually still depends on humans. It depends on human labor to annotate all these data sets so that it can run better. So it's kind of a circular logic. If you want to automate tasks away from humans, you need more humans to power that model that will do the automation. So if you look at it from some angles, it may not it may not be as sustainable as people thought, or at least there's an initial hump of technical debt and costs that need to happen before this industry you know, fully evolves. So where does that put us, right now? And there are many ways to, I think, that we can look into this. Um, Obviously, it begs some sort of labor standard or regulation to be put in place that even AI companies now need to abide by. I mean, every other industry has its labor rules and labor codes. So AI should not be any different. And when we hire people for a service, we need to ensure they're paid well, the payment is transparent, and in case there are problems, workers need a recourse mechanism. So right now, I don't think they're even covered by DOLE because they're not technically employed as the case is. So we need to protect the rights of these workers and ensure that minimum wage at the very least should be enforced. We need oversight into this. It may require both the Department of Labor and maybe the Department of ICT, the DICT, to look into how the technology trend and disruption works hand in hand or should work hand in hand with established rules, and standards. I mean, you just can't disrupt for the sake of disrupting, and then people end up with the worst end of the stick. I'm also wondering if the first offing of this service, you already have underpaid people. I wonder if there really is kind of how much allowance does this industry have in terms of absorbing additional costs? Because on the kind of the tail end, companies like OpenAI, Meta, and the rest are trying their best to provide access to their APIs in the most affordable way possible in order to continue democratizing access to AI. Even if they're going to monopolize it, they want everyone to be able to afford it. It's not unlike getting a Netflix subscription at super cheap cost compared to the original, compared to watching a movie in the cinema, or compared to buying actual DVDs. Getting Netflix seems so cheap. So I think that's the intention as well. You want to get these AI models as cheaply as possible and argue for more volume. But then, ironically, it also depends on this kind of low-paid labor sector in order to function. So, I mean, overall, what I think is um, there are a couple of undeniable truths here. One is we need humans still to make the AI world possible, at the very least on the annotation side. So we have to break this notion that AI is a complete departure from human labor. Actually, what we're seeing now is it's creating human labor. Probably not the human labor we thought we were creating. It's also pointing to a further need to upskill people in AI and its various facets. So clearly, data annotation is a vital task, but it can't be the only job created under AI. Certainly, there'll be a need for higher end work, technical support, prompt engineering, application development, even data analysis. So the data scientist, the data analyst, uh, will be part of this AI, trend. Um, the exploitation of these workers is an ethical issue, and the fact that there are no rules in place, there are no guidelines, there's no clear labor standards and protection mechanisms for this specific type of work, like micro tasking, digital freelancing. So as a result, workers are underpaid. Sometimes their payments aren't on time or even withheld. And we need urgent attention to address this. And then at the same time, of course, there are many moving parts. I've shared some of them on this channel before. There's moves in Congress to push for education. The IBPAP and the AAP are working closer together to revitalize and protect the BPO sector. AAP itself is working with the government, to revitalize the AI roadmap that was crafted back in 2021. Now with the implications brought about by generative AI. So there's a lot of these moving parts. So it's actually ironic, if you ask me, that something like this falls through the cracks. Just when you're creating labor, it's actually abusive labor that you end up creating. So anyway, yeah, it's obviously an open item now. I just wanted to film this reaction over lunch so that people are aware of the situation. I've actually reached out both to Regine Cabato and Professor Cheryl Soriano, who has been studying the digital freelancing industry for some time, and I'm looking forward to getting their inputs on this issue. Yeah, but in the meantime, we have to watch this phenomena of, digital sweatshops closely. And yeah, I think this is an opportunity for the Philippines to step up, professionalize this, regulate this, so that we end up benefiting from the AI. So that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching this special edition of AI for Lunch. I'll have more content formats coming up soon, so I just wanted to make sure that you guys didn't feel too much of a gap. My conversations are ongoing, and there's actually more to come on the other fronts, so please stay tuned. In the meantime, thank you very much.